Yo, what's up, chefs? It's Vinny. This is going to be a hyper focused step by step trading guide that's going to show you exactly how to get insanely good items for a very cheap price. I'm not going to go over trading etiquette, how to sell items, any of that extra stuff. We're going to stay laser focused on getting you the best items for your price. So, if you want to see how to get items like this, 5 Exalted Orb boots, 140 life, 20 movement speed, 161 energy shield, 55 total resistances for 5 Exalted Orbs listed an hour ago, 4 Exalted Orbs listed 15 hours ago, 5 Exalted Orbs listed 10 minutes ago. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around to the end of the video, and I promise you will be on your way to being a master trader. Following that, I'm going to do things a bit different, and rather than overload you with information on the infinite possibilities of combinations here, I'm going to take you step by step on how you would get a cheap item that's very good. So first things first, what item are you looking for? Item category. Let's say we're looking for boots. I'll kind of go through a boots example first, and then I'll have some more examples later on. But let's go with boots. Okay, we got that selected. Item rarity. Let's set it to rare. We don't want to see uniques. We don't want to see magics. Okay, after that, nothing important here. Item level, item quality. Don't care about that. Most of this stuff we don't care about. But let's say we want boots that are energy shield only. Okay, we're going to set the minimum to 1 for energy shield. For armor, we're going to set it to 0. For evasion, we're going to set it to 0. Now our boots will only have energy shield. The inverse of this, let's say you want energy shield and evasion, remove this, set it to 1. So on and so forth. Hopefully that makes sense. But for now, let's just do only energy shield. Moving on. If you're at a lower level, you can mess with the minimum and maximum level filter, but for this example, we're not going to use it. I'm going to assume you're kind of into the end game. Once you're into the end game, you don't really use this very often, if at all. I never use it at this point. But if you're lower level, feel free to use it. Moving on, miscellaneous, nothing you need to worry about here. Trade filters, potentially one of the most important, is your budget. So for most people, you're going to be trading in Exalted Orbs. If you're a big baller, you can go Divine Orbs, but you can find typically very good items, like very good bang for your buck items, by just spending anywhere from 5 to 25 Exalted Orbs. You can even find really good ones for 1 Exalted Orb, I promise you. So let's say our budget is 15. We'll set that to 15. Next, moving on to the right side. Let's say we know we want movement speed. So this add stat filter, this is only to be used for things you know you would not buy the item if it doesn't have it. So I know I'm not going to buy a pair of boots unless they have movement speed. Little tip here, make sure you use the tilde if you're starting out. This gives you a lot more flexibility with this drop down. So let's say I type move and then speed. It'll show me increased movement speed. But let's say I remove the tilde and then do the same thing. Well, if I type move speed with no tilde, it says no elements found. Like I said, that tilde is giving you some leeway, so make sure you use that. So we'll do increased movement speed. I'm not going to buy a pair of boots unless they have at least 25 movement speed. But that's the only thing in my mind for boots that is like a mandatory. So what do we do after that? How do we refine the search results even more? Well, this is where stat groups come into play, and I promise you stat groups are the #1 reason why I find cheap items that are very good. There's only like 3 that I use, and even one of those I very rarely use, but I'll use not, count, and weighted sum v2. Very rarely do I use not, but I use count and weighted sum v2 in almost every single item I buy. So following up with the boots example, let's say I want boots that not only have movement speed, but they also have some resistances. So I'll make a weighted sum v2 stat group. I'm going to use my tilde, type res, fire resistance. Let's just copy this. Fire resistance, lightning resistance, cold resistance. And what this weighted sum v2 is going to do is whatever minimum I set here, let's say I do 40, it's going to find a sum of 40 resistances that is some combination of these 3. So it might be 20 fire, 20 cold, might be 15 fire, 15 lightning, 10 cold. Probably won't be, but it could be. And only if it has a minimum of 40 will it show up as a search result. So let's just start by searching for that. This isn't going to be the best boots ever, but you can see it's already below 10,000, which is a good start. Next, This is a little tip, kind of advanced, but I think it's very valuable. Let's sort by energy shield for now. As you can see, within our budget, we have pair of boots, 257 energy shield with 71 resistances. This is already a very good pair of boots. How do we improve this a bit more though? Okay, so we look at this number, it's 257, go down 200, that's a pretty big drop. So these are actually maybe a really good steal, maybe they're already sold. You can see 200, 198, 191. Okay, so there's a lot that are over 180. So let's take this energy shield number, let's pump it up to 180. Now we know that the minimum is 180. So what can we do with that? Well, we can sort by the sum. To be clear, this is for the weighted sum right here. And now we've got a pair of boots. Once again, we're seeing that same pair of boots. It's got 71 total resistances. It's got 25% increased movement speed. And it's got 257 energy shield at maximum quality. And a little very important tip here is that this is not including runes if there are no runes in the item. So you can see right here, this has a rune that increases the energy shield. The max quality is 20 and it's 191, which matches up. However, this one says max 257. If you were to 20% quality this, it would go up to 257. Then you would add a rune and it would actually go up to like 270 or 280. So the short and sweet of that is if you've got two pairs of boots, let's say both of these said 180, you would actually want to get this pair because it doesn't have a rune in it yet. So once you put a rune in, instead of being 180, it'll be like 195. Just a little advanced tip. And as you can see, like I said, here we go. We've only got 16 results, but that's not bad. Can almost guarantee you that a couple of these, if not all of them, will be willing to sell their boots to you. And all of these boots are going to be incredibly good for the price. 180, 250, 190 energy shield, plus your movement speed, plus your resistances, super solid. So that's kind of like the step-by-step of how you would want to go about setting up your search filters. Now, obviously there is more you can do with this. Just as an example, let's say you know you don't need lightning resist, you can remove the lightning resist section of the weighted sum v2, re-hit search, and then you will have less results, but you can guarantee that none of them are going to have lightning resist. They're all going to be a combination of fire and cold. You can sort by sum once again, and you can see 50 total resistances, 182 energy shield, and 30% increased movement speed. Very solid. If you wanted to get more crazy, you probably wouldn't do this for energy shield, but just to illustrate the point, let's say you also want max life on your boots. You could set this down to 150 because you're adding a new stat over here, so you maybe need to be a little bit more flexible on the energy shield. Let's also add max life. Let's say we want something that has at least 60 max life. Hit search once again. Now we can see 88 life, 51 resistances. It's got the movement speed. It's got the energy shield. Bada bing, bada boom. You can sort by sum. You can sort by energy shield. Both would be a solid option. And as you can see, 5 Exalted Orbs, 80 max life, 158 energy shield. This one even has an extra bonus stat of increased rarity. It's got your movement speed. It's got your resistances. It's got everything you need for a cheap price. So now we have one other stat group that I want to just quickly demonstrate how it works. And then I'm going to get into some full-on examples. If I was going to be buying an item, how would I ensure I get a good item for a cheap price? So the count is the other group I want to explain. Potentially the easiest way to explain this would be, let's say I'm going for a ring and I know that I want it to have at least 2 flat elemental damage rolls, but I'm not really concerned whether or not it's fire, lightning, or cold. So I'll do fire damage to attacks, cold damage to attacks, and lightning damage to attacks. And then I'm going to set the minimum to 2. And what this will do is any of these search results will have at least 2 flat elemental damage rolls. As you can see, if I hit search, boom, we got 2. We got fire and cold, you get the point. But you might be saying, well, these rolls suck, so this isn't very helpful. It's also at 10,000. How do we improve that? Well, there's a bunch of other things you could do, but just to showcase, you can set the minimum to 15 for each of these. And then now you can see we've got actually good elemental damage rolls. We've got an R7, R6, R7, R8, R5, R5, R6, R7. You've got good elemental damage rolls. We also don't have our max budget set, which is part of the issue, but you get the point. So now that you understand weighted sum, you understand count, you understand the step-by-step of how you would set it up, let me go over some actual examples. So let's take that one we were just looking at a second ago. Let's do a ring. Let's say I want an elemental damage ring. It's going to have flat elemental damage rolls. It's also going to have a buttload of resistances, and I want to get it for a reasonably cheap price. How do I do it? Okay, ring, rare, buyout price, exalted orbs. Let's do 20. Don't need to mess with any of this stuff because it's a ring. Don't need to worry about the armor, evasion, energy shield. Next, what am I going to do? Okay, count. I know I want 2 flat elemental damage rolls. I don't care if it's lightning, cold, or fire. Okay, fire, cold, lightning. What else do I want? Okay, I know I want it to have a buttload of resistances. All right, let's do all elemental resistances. To me, that would be a main stat. I'm not gonna buy a ring unless it's got all elemental resistances, and it needs to have at least 13% total. Next, I'm gonna set, or I should have done this before, but set the minimum count to 2. Let's set the minimum amount to 15. This is one of those numbers you want to play around with. I just have kind of a feel for it. If you're not finding results, set these lower. If you are finding too many results, set them higher, etc., etc. Beyond that, let's say I also want some additional resistances. Like I said, I want it to be a buttload. Okay, res, boom, fire, lightning, cold. We've got our weighted sum V2. Let's set this to 30. So now, before I even hit search, I know that the rings that show up are going to have good flat elemental damage rolls. They're going to have at least 13% all elemental resistances. And then they're also going to have an additional 30% resist that is some combination of these. It could just be 1, could be 2, can't be all 3 because we've also got all elemental resistances, but you get the point. And they will also be within a 20 orb budget. Let's hit search. We've only got 16 results, but like I said before, that's not necessarily bad. Actually, in a lot of cases, that is good. Now, how would I go about filtering through this? Even though it's only 16 results, this is kind of where window shopping comes into play. This is where you want to look through them, kind of see what looks really juicy to you. But how would I maybe sort this? Well, I would sort by sum first. Now I can see, okay, 42% resistances from fire and lightning, and it's got 14 all LE res, so that's 42 plus 42, it's 84 resistances, and it has 2 really good rolls, R7, R7. It's got an additional 21% lightning res as the implicit, so it's actually 103 total resistances, and it's got 2 good flat elemental damage rolls for 20 exalted orbs. Move down, we've got an increased rarity of items found ring, good rolls. This one's also got percent increased fire damage. I might want that. And it's got a bunch of resistances. Bada bing, bada boom. 10 exalted orbs. 10 exalted orbs. And you can just know that all of these are going to be relatively good. But your next step would kind of be to do a little bit of window shopping, as I said. You've only got 16 results, so it shouldn't be that difficult for you to do some window shopping. See this one right here, 21 minutes ago, 20 exalted orbs, 12 all attributes, accuracy rating, all elemental res, fire res, 2 good rolls. Maybe you don't want cast speed, but that's okay. You can just keep looking. And as you can see, this should be relatively simple for you to window shop at this point, because you've only got 16 rings to look through, and they're all going to be reasonably good. This breach ring, for example, might be really solid. There's a bunch of options here, all for under 20 exalted orbs. So that's how I would go about finding a good elemental ring. Okay, let's do a weapon. So we're going to do a physical damage quarterstaff. I know a lot of people like to use physical damage quarterstaffs. I'm currently not one of those people, but I'll show you how to go about it. So item category, quarterstaff. Once again, rare. Then we're going to set our budget, exalted orb. Let's do 25. Maybe we're willing to spend a little bit more money on our weapon. You probably should be willing to do that because weapons are quite important if you're playing a melee class. And then some people, I think I said this before, some people like to mess with the physical DPS, elemental DPS, and just regular DPS. I don't do that, and I'll show you why in just a second. What are the things I know that I need on this staff? Okay, I know I need some physical related stuff. So let's actually use our tilde. Let's do physical. What looks important here? Okay, physical damage. and adds blank to blank physical damage. Okay, so let's do that. So let's copy, grab that, paste, grab that. What else do I know I want? Okay, I know I want attack speed. Not going to be able to live without attack speed. There are 2 attack speed filters, which is kind of a bug. Let's just make sure we pick the right one. We're just going to hit search. Okay, we picked the right one. Good. Now, this will already be pretty good, but you can see there's 10,000 matches. So that's maybe not enough. What else can we do? Okay, let's add a stat group. Let's do a count. I would be pretty content if it had percent to critical hit chance or critical damage bonus. Both of those would be good for me. So let's set this to 1. Now let's hit search. Now we've got 1,207 matched. What do I do from here? Sort by DPS. As you can see, 5 Exalted Orbs, 519 total DPS. It's got crit chance. It's got attack speed. I mean, if you just got into the end game or, you're level 77, you've got 5 Exalted Orbs to spend. This is a pretty solid weapon. It's corrupted with 8% increased attack speed. Bada bing, bada boom, and it's only 5 Exalted Orbs. Maybe you don't want that one for some reason, even though you would probably want this one because it's quite good. You can scroll down. We've got it sorted by DPS. And if you let's say you don't really care for elemental DPS, you could sort by physical DPS instead, although I wouldn't personally do that. I would just sort by total DPS, and then I would just kind of eyeball this. But you can see, once again, another good one, 498, 25 Exalted Orbs. It's got crit chance, attack speed, double physical rolls, accuracy rating, dexterity, our bonus window shop stats. Same as the ring at this point. We just got to do a little bit of window shopping. We do have 1,206 results. So if we wanted to, could we shake that down just a little bit to make our window shopping a bit better? Sure, you could. You could set the physical DPS to 450. Then you could hit search. Now you've only got 3 results. Maybe you need to lower it a little bit. Let's do 400. Shakes it down to 37. Now you can window shop this. It shouldn't be too difficult. Another example of this, let's say you want to not worry about that. Let's say you want dexterity or intelligence. So you can do dex and then intelligence, although you probably shouldn't be getting this on your weapon, but let's just say you need it for some reason. Set the count to 1. Now it's going to have at least one of these. We'll set the minimums to 15. 195 matched. Sort by DPS. Boom. Crit chance, attack speed, dexterity, both physical rolls. Total 498 DPS. 25 Exalted Orbs. I mean, you're good to go. This is insane. This is a very good weapon. You're not going to be beating this by too much. Obviously, you can find much better if you want to drop 15 Divine Orbs, but you could take this to T15 maps. You could take this to Pinnacle bosses. You could take this to your fourth set of Ascendancy points, your 7th and 8th point. This will get you through the majority of the game, if not all of it. So, there you go. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do armor. Let's do body armor. Let's say, for my monk, or for most monks, let's say you want an energy shield and evasion base. Okay, so we're going to do 0. We're going to do 1. We're going to do 1. And then we're going to set our budget. We're going to do Exalted Orb. We're going to do 20. For now, let's just start with that, and I'll show you why I would start with that first. Oh, let's do rare. My bad. Set that to rare. Why would you maybe want to just start with that? Well, let's say you don't know what these numbers should be. Okay, so you start with just 1, and then let's just sort by energy shield. Okay, we see one here, 1 Exalted Orb. 100% this already sold, by the way. This is an infinitely good deal, so we're not even going to look at this one. Let's just look down a little bit. We've got 20 Exalted Orbs, 20, 20, 20. Okay, a bunch of these are 20, but that's fine. Let's look at this one. 375, 375, 370, 369, 367. Okay, so somewhere above 325 sounds like it should be pretty good for this budget. So let's set the energy shield to 325. Then let's sort again. And to be perfectly honest, you've already got a really good chest piece here. How could you improve this, though? Let's say you want some resistances. Okay, let's do res. Once again, you've seen this before. Copy, fire, copy, lightning, paste, cold. Let's sort it. Oh, let's set our minimum. Let's set our minimum of, we'll do 30. And then let's sort by energy shield again. Okay, here we go. 26 minutes ago, 20 exalted orbs, 363 energy shield, 957 evasion. It's got 31 resistances. And I mean, there you go. And then what you could do is you could say, okay, well, now you know what these stats are. Like, these are what are making the energy shield so high. You could do the inverse of this, where instead of using these numbers, you could set up the filters over here. But to be perfectly honest, using these numbers is just quite a bit easier. It's also much more beginner friendly, so I'd recommend sticking to these for a while until you really understand all of these different stats. But as you can see, like I said, we could sort by sum. Let's say we want to do that. Okay, 48 total resistances. It's got spirit, which would be a dead roll for us as a monk, but it still has 343 energy shield, 869 evasion, and 48 resist. And at this point, once again, it's just a bit of window shopping. Boom. Banger. One down right here. 193 max life, 328 ES, 868 evasion. Like I said, 193 max life and 48 resistances. And it's got a max roll life regeneration, 29.7 life regeneration per second as well. This is why you want to do a little bit of window shopping. You can obviously sort this down even more from 60. Let's say, once again, let's say we need dexterity or intelligence. Probably shouldn't be doing this on your chess piece, but if you have to, you have to. Set minimum 15. We want one of these. Search. 16 results. Sort by energy shields, sort by resistances, whichever you choose. You could do both and just look around. Now we've got intelligence, max life, energy shield, evasion, resistances, everything you need for 15 exalted, 10 exalted, 20 exalted, 15 exalted, 17 exalted. And all of these are going to be very, very good. Hopefully that, guys, kind of broke down to you how I go about buying items and why weighted sum V2 and count are very, very important. As always, if you have any additional questions, feel free to join the Discord, drop your questions there. People will certainly be willing to help. I've also got a Google Doc set up for my most recent build that has a bunch of trade links and a bunch of extra information if you want to see even more detail. But I feel like I've already kind of gone overkill with this, and you should have a pretty good understanding at this point of what you should be doing to find really good items. Just a short synopsis. Obviously, start with your item category, set the rarity to rare, make your budget. If it's a piece of armor, you set whatever base type you want. If you want energy shield and evasion, or just energy shield, or just armor, whatever the case may be, you can mess with the minimum there. The minimum there is going to deal with these filters over here, so you don't need to worry about the individual stat filters. Then you can set up your weighted sum. You want some resistances. You shouldn't really care too much about which ones there are specifically. And a little tip for this is try buying items in a group. So instead of just buying one item, try buying like 3. So like instead of just upgrading your chest piece, upgrade your chest piece, your boots, and your belt. And if you do all 3 at the same time, you don't need to worry so much about the exact resistances it has. As long as all of your items have a good amount of resistances, you'll typically be okay. And you can resolve the puzzle if you're buying 3 items at a time instead of just 1. Obviously, as you get really deep into the end game, you won't be doing that as often, but you shouldn't have as much of an issue once you get deeply into the end game. And the ring I showed earlier that had 100 plus resistances, if you get 2 rings like that, you're going to be big chillin', so on and so forth. Finally, hope you guys have fun blasting. And last but not least, take it easy, chefs. As you fade away, as you fade away.